So one of the things that excited me about you possibly getting the role and finally getting the role is you've been all over the place. You've been on the policy side. You've been on the private sector side. You've worked with varied government agencies. You've been in the legislature, and now you're here. So with all that experience, and now you're in the car. You're shifting into gear. Where are you going? What is the visitor? What do you think the market should bring to the table to attract visitors to Guam?
So, what we've heard back, and I'll refer to the work that I did on the tourism repositioning strategy, right? We really went out, one of the phases is going out into the market and getting information from potential visitors. So we did a in-market survey of 750 potential travelers in each of our key markets. So Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and then we did a number of other new markets and possible destinations or possible markets that we could pursue in the future. And a lot of the feedback that we started to receive from them is just that, just in general, when people travel, they want a unique experience, something outside of their everyday lives. But another thing that we're hearing is that we need a new attraction somehow. And so whether that's ecotourism, whether that's a brand new development, or we're taking existing infrastructure, existing spaces, and really trying to innovate and bring in new tools and new tech to transform some of these spaces. So we're talking about, VR, AR, 3D mapping, projection. I'm sure you've traveled and experienced kind of like a Team Labs.
Yeah, Team Labs is awesome.
But it's becoming a draw for a lot of tourists, and they will travel to have that kind of experience. And so what we can do also from a cultural perspective to ensure that our visitors know that they're in Guam and not just, somewhere else in the world, Ohio or, Vietnam, but really have that sense of place is going to be really key, again, to having that unique experience and only on Guam kind of vacation.
Yeah, I agree. But how do you figure it out? I mean, there's a lot of risk involved in bringing something like that, like Team Labs, or if you ever been you from Vegas, right? Or you've been in Vegas. There's this place called a Mega Mart. It's like this giant supermarket with like all these hidden passages. There's a lot of vacant buildings here. You could like do that kind of stuff with, right?
But I think it's really important, again, to just understand what the market wants. And we, tried to do that in this initial source market survey, but GBB is really committed to, we've reestablished our exit surveys. We're taking all of these different data points and different opportunities for research to really try to, one, figure out how to better market ourselves from the very beginning. Like, how do we better reach our customers? And then once they get here, what has their experience been and how can we improve that? And so really using data to drive a lot of that decision making to make sure that we are investing and having a good return on that investment, and attracting potential future investment for things that are missing in our landscape.
And I think the market doesn't understand how to leverage data. And that's a real thing. And part of it too is the market doesn't care to spend to aggregate the data and focus on collecting the data that you need. And shout out to the podcast. Thanks. You said data points, right? But what data points do you need to collect or care about to decision things moving forward? So what do you think those things are?
So there's so many different opportunities for us. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but we've re-engaged with a group or a company called Tourism Economics, and they have this product called Symphony, and it's kind of a hub, a data hub, where they are we're working with them to provide past research and past data points, and they're kind of plugging that in to make sure that we are using this data for decisions going forward. But also, there's so many really new and cool tech things and opportunities for us to use tools like geofencing to really nail down exactly where visitors are going when they're here in Guam, how much time they're spending there. And so not just kind of the visitor attributes that folks are looking for when they select a destination to travel, but once they get here, where are they spending a majority of their time? And we also have co-ops with companies like Shinhan Card and Visa. And so they're tracking spending and visitor spending, and then kind of the profiles of those visitors. And we can do a lot with that data.
Absolutely. But I think you need to get a little bit more granular too to really be effective. And also one of the keys to the visitor experience is attracting the right retail mix, the right restaurant mix. And how do I determine what that is? And so if I was to go to, again, big box retailer like Target and say, come to Guam, oh yeah, what's your product mix? What do you think I should bring here? Because they have to look at global supply chain and see, what can I get to Guam?
Right.
How quickly, how much inventory do I have to carry? What does my supply chain look like? What do the metrics look like? And every business in the world operates like this now at scale, to the point where they're hedging buying opportunities on the raw materials market. Right. That's how deep it gets for Walmart. I mean, they move they move margins of $3 million just based on where they book the option for their supply chain 5 years out. But that's key. That's keyed on the data that they collect, and we as a government don't care.
No, I think that's absolutely right, and you're spot on that in the past, we've certainly had challenges with those kinds of things, and there hasn't really been a good public-private, partnership, for lack of a better word, to figuring those pieces out. But I think that's a huge opportunity for us going forward.
Yes.
I think that from the GVB perspective, we're certainly engaged in improving how we're doing our research, how we're providing our data to our members. But to the extent that the private side can come in and assist us with, other products that are taking a look at a lot of these things and piecing all of it together, it's so critical. And we need to be able to, if we're going to, catch those big whales and invite folks to come and do business here on Guam, we need to get our act together.
Yes, and that's where the public-private partnership comes in, because it takes the support of trade organizations to educate their members and collaborate with, GVB on what the mix should be, how to use the data, where you should find this data, how you should be looking at it, and just helping them be successful. Right. And I don't think that infrastructure is there. It's like, here you go, here's a little money and a QC, and go swim with the sharks.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. God bless.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, we definitely need to do a better job of that. But again, it's a really big opportunity for us to kind of fill those gaps and build bridges and make sure that we're getting there.
That's the thing. It's build bridges. Even there's this program for investment for businesses that you're familiar with, Destino Guam, right?
Yes.
But from what I understand, it's such an amazing program, but they can't get people organized and enough, and to the point where they actually conceptualize and submit a plan. Yeah,
so one of the challenges, right, is it's a federal program and they're getting federal dollars for it, so they have that kind of threshold and a level that you have to meet. So Gita's doing actually a pretty good job of trying to assist local businesses and ramping them up. But yeah, it's been a challenge, and something that I think there have been, I think, 2 recipients of that.
And one of them was in the visitor industry.
BC, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
So that's great.
It is.
But that's what you need. But then what I'm saying is, like, the people who would be the operators don't necessarily have the capacity to bring it from the idea to get the VC in.
Right.
They can execute the concept, but structurally to get from the concept to financing, that is the challenge. And that's where I think the gap in the market is. And that's the gap that you need to solve to allow small businesses to bring those kinds of offerings, take those kinds of risks. Because I think the money can be there, right? The financing for the idea can be there. But if I can't get to the place where I can professionally present And that's where I think maybe something is missing and something needs to be done. And again, that's where the trade associations come in, advisory. There's a gap.
But I also just want to acknowledge where we've come from and where we are today. So in terms of, the pandemic and just kind of like throwing a wrench in so many of our plans, and to the point that our visitor industry right now, the last few years, everybody's just doing what they can to keep their head above water. And, everything, all the decisions that are being made by industry leaders have been really tactical. And they're just trying to keep their doors open and the lights on. And, even if they're still in operation, still in business, it's at a reduced capacity. And so helping them to, I think one of the big roles and the big opportunities I think GVB has is to be that entity and that organization to collaborate, bring people together, but also have that strategic vision and, get everybody on board and say, hey guys, we see the promised land and it's, 1 point whatever million visitors, whatever we decide is going to be kind of that comfortable, sustainable place for us to land. And then this is how we're going to get there. So you can continue to do all the tactical things and making sure that, your employees are taken care of and that we're providing good service for our customers. And, this is where we're moving and we're all trying to move in that same direction. And so again, easier said than done, but I really think that that's what's been missing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Regine.
Thank you.
I'm
really so grateful that you asked for me to come here. And so I actually brought you something.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So this is a very special, exclusive Hafide Guam USA bag. I really
Look
like
at that
this
product
bag.
placement.
Check this
Look
out.
at that. Look at that.
Hafide.
What a pro.
And it's really cool because it has a map of Guam with all of our, I'm sure many people who are tuning into this podcast might have this. But if you come visit Guam, you can get one. At the Visitors Bureau, but a map of Guam with all of our villages. And then inside, because it's a little warm in here, this is a shout out to Yvonne. So I have a Guam pin so you can,
Thank you.
You can rep us when you're on your podcast. And then a little fan. It's
Oh,
like
right
a
on.
Guam brand fan.
That is the total Guam gift, right?
See?
That's awesome.
So when
Thank you.
you're like at soccer games or whatever
Thank
with
you.
the boys, then you can be nice and cool.
You must have seen me dying on Saturday.
No, but I really appreciate it. And I like, it's a little bit nerdy and I kind of dig that. But, the opportunity for us to not just, throw wet paper towel against the wall and figuring out what sticks, but really thinking more deeply about how we can make data-driven decisions and make, build things that are going to last.
Yeah, and I'm glad you see it that way because I think that's the only way forward.
I agree.
Good luck to you.
Sejos Maasi. And please pray. Pray for Guam.
I don't think prayers are needed, just action.
Right on. Absolutely. Prayers and action. How about
luck.
that?
Thanks.
Thank you.